Ken.
Huh? No, I have to submit the
All
deadline.
right. Well, you're allowed. All right. Testing one, two. Welcome to another live episode of Talking Timepieces, where we talk about watch collecting and horology. Today, see, I hate the reflection in the glasses, but what are you gonna do? You need the light. But today, we're going to talk about watch collecting strategies. And, well, people are collecting, and even if you don't have a actual strategy, you've got at least an idea of what you want, right? So, let's talk a little bit about that. You know, when people first start buying watches, they're like, "Ooh, I like XYZ watch." They see something on someone's wrist. "Hey, Renee, how you doing today, my friend?" Um, you start by seeing watches you like, right? And then you want to buy those watches, and then if you're lucky, you can buy some of those watches, and if you're luckier, you continue on buying other watches, and you get involved in, yeah, the hobby, obsession, um, fun time of watch collecting. Now, you know, when I say a watch collecting strategy, you don't have to have a strategy, but a strategy helps. And in fact, at the beginning, you may not have a strategy, you may not need a strategy, but as you grow and you learn and you develop and you experience things, you'll develop a strategy anyway. You know what I mean? Like you may start by liking one type of technology or another, or I like quartz watches, or I like day dates, or I like chronographs, or I like moon phases. And you start with that, and then you get into the watches, and then you start playing with watches you like, and then you say, "Hey, I like these other watches too." So the more watches you experience, the more experience you have, and the more experience you have, the more you know what's out there. And frankly, as I've alluded to in other videos, you can't get what you want until you know what you want. And so the only way to truly experience collecting is to learn as much as you can about as many different kinds of watches as you can, so that you have a database, baseline of information that you can use to make intelligent decisions. Now, when it comes to watch collecting strategy, a lot of people have a one watch strategy. I had a one watch strategy for most of my life. I've always been into watches, but frankly, the idea of collecting never really occurred to me until my adult years. But I always tried to have at least a good watch on my wrist at all times. Sometimes it was something nice like a Breitling, and sometimes it was something mainstream like a Bulova. But I always tried to have at least one nice watch on my wrist. And about 5 years ago, I sold my car, and I realized that I didn't need the money for any other purpose. So I just put it into watches, and I discovered the joys of having more than one watch. And then about 2 years ago, I started this channel. But I do believe that you could put watch collecting into categories. And when you think about it, there's right off the bat the one watch collection. Like I said, what most people do, they buy one good watch and they wear that one good watch. And frankly, that's where someone like Rolex shines, right? Because if you're going to do a one watch collection, Rolex is arguably the best one watch collection out there. They're durable, they're rugged, they last a long time, they're great watches, they look fantastic, they're valuable. I don't know if they're worth the value, but they're valuable, and they're universal. The designs are so um, plain in one sense, basic, that you can wear it with anything. Rolexes are the penultimate one watch collection. If anybody just wanted to wear one watch, I would strongly suggest buy a Rolex. Arguably, that's the only place I would say buy a Rolex, because if you have more than one watch, the Rolex is going to cast a shadow over your collection no matter what you've got. Because I mean, like, for example, I talk about this one often, so I'll switch to another one. For example, this IWC Pilot Chrono, right? This is $4,000 worth of watch. It is not a cheap watch. It is not a shabby watch. It's a high quality watch. And yet you could buy two of these for what a Oyster Perpetual three-hander, no date, sells for. And an Oyster Perpetual is not worth twice this. I'm sorry. Prove me wrong. But yeah, so if you have one watch, Rolex is fantastic. If you have more than one watch, the Rolex will overshadow the rest of your collection and take the joy out of it, unless the other watches in your collection are worth more than a Rolex or about the same as a Rolex. But like I said, because Rolex prices are so horribly distorted, anything in the price range of a Rolex is going to be a better watch, no matter how you slice it. I mean, for the $18,000 that you pay for a Hulk, $18,000 to $20,000 that you pay for a Hulk, you could buy a Jaeger-LeCoultre Polaris chronograph, a chronograph, column wheel chronograph that's thinner than a Daytona. There's no way on God's green earth you're going to convince me that a Submariner, no matter what the color, because don't forget, the Hulk is just a color change. It's not like there's a better watch under there than the black Submariner. So there's no way on God's green earth you're going to convince me that a Hulk is worth two Jaeger-LeCoultre chronographs. But I don't want to bash Rolex, although it's very easy to. Once you start talking about more than one watch is when you should start thinking about other watch companies. I mean, like, so if you're talking about more than one watch, first step is a daily wear, right? So you buy something like a Datejust, one watch, you're good. Then you go to a second watch. If you've got a daily wear, then your second watch would probably be a sports watch. So like, for example, let's say you had like this Omega Globemaster. As everyone who's watched the show more than once knows, I can't get any good focus on this thing. Maybe I'll put it right in the middle. No. All right, there we go. Little bit there. So the Globemaster is a really beautiful daily wear watch that makes the Datejust look sad, by the way. But then you might want something a little bit more, sporty, something with some flair. You could go with something really visibly sporty like this. Look at this, it's got so many features, it focuses easier on this, I guess. But this Navitimer, for example, that would be a great two-watch collection. You got a daily wear that you can wear with a suit, or you can wear casual or whatever, and then you got this sports watch that you can, wear for whenever you want it to be a little bit more sporty, as it were. Or, you could go with, say, for example, a diver, right? So you have a nice daily wear, and then you got a nice diver. And in the case of this one, we got some sirens. I hope it's not too loud. In the case of this one, the Tudor Black Bay, this is a daily wear in its own right. So you could go with, say, for example, this is a daily wear, and then go with something maybe more sporty for, like I said, like the Navitimer for your sports watch. So this could be a two-watch collection. Or you could go with something, say, for example, more elegant, like this Longines triple date moon phase. So, that's, for example, a nice two-watch collection, blue and red. And it lets you, you've got watches to wear with a lot of occasions. I wouldn't go with, say, two divers, because even though these look different, the style cues, the aspects of being a diver, they're too much alike. But once you go past two watches, then you really start getting into some flexibility, right? You can go into, say, three watches, right? So then you have maybe a nice daily wear, a nice sporty watch, and then something like a diver, right, as a third. So then you got sporty, you got a little bit rough and tumble, and then you got daily casual, right? Or you could go with like design styles. This is another Flieger, right? These are both Fliegers, but you could theoretically make this a two watch collection. You know, the key is that when you're going for a multiple watch collection, it's not like you have to, tick boxes and say, I need a dress watch, I need a sports watch, I need a diver, I need, don't tick boxes like that. Say, what do I want to wear daily? What do I feel like when I want to be sporty? And buy watches that you want to wear based on your mood or your clothes or your attitude, and then buy watches for those slots in your mind, as it were. So if you're in your mind, you want a sporty watch, then buy a sporty watch. If you're in your mind, you want a crossover watch, buy a crossover watch. Some people, a two watch collection would be, say, a field watch and a diver watch. So it's not that you have to have specific types. There's not, like I said, again, watch collecting is not like ticking off a checklist. You buy what you like, not what you expect other people's to like. Renee, I had a few rules for my collection and followed these rules for the last 5 years. Only buy watches that I like. It has to be a watch from the Swatch Group family. That's an interesting rule, Renee. It has to be either Omega, Longines, Union, Rado, Hamilton, Tissot, Mito, or Certina. Okay, well, I mean, at least in that case, you got a nice spectrum of watch companies to choose from, because those are all great companies. And 3, each movement only once in the collection. So I'm assuming you mean like a annual calendar and well, this is the trouble is, once you start talking about each type, these are both Flieger chronos, but they're very different. So are you talking movement in that sense? They're both Value 7750 based movements, but this is a GMT and this one's not, for example. Or frankly, all 3 of these watches are Value 7750 base. So Renee, be careful about that. Each one has to have a movement, because frankly, each of this could be a 3-watch collection, right? If you think about it, this could be a 3-watch collection. You got a dressy, you got a daily, and you got a sporty. So, you got to be careful about each movement only once. I like to look at it as each design set, like one calendar moon phase. Well, I have 2 divers, but one's a GMT. I've got 2 Fliegers, but one's a Navitimer and one's an IWC. So the lines start to get blurry when you start talking about collecting, watches and trying to fill boxes. I think the best thing is think about what your tastes go and the styles of watch you like, and then buy a watch for each of the styles that you prefer. Let's see. UK Carl. My collecting strategy is safe for an Omega at the moment, but I've just come across the Oris Dive 65 and I'm very tempted. Oris makes really nice watches. I would totally recommend an Oris. I bought a vintage Oris for my girlfriend. She really likes it, a green one. If you look in my Instagram feed, or I think I even put it on the YouTube feed, that was the picture of me going out to dinner, the lady with the green watch. That green watch is a vintage Oris. Oris makes some really nice pieces. You're not going down a lot when you're going from Omega to Oris. I would say it's more like going from BMW to Audi. Oh, we got a siren. All right, hopefully not too bad. I would say going from Omega to Oris would be like going from BMW to Audi. Audi's not bad and better than most. And the same could be said for Oris. Oris is maybe not as cutting edge as Omega, but you'll never go wrong buying an Oris, and it's better than a lot of pieces out there. Let's see. Each additional watch must always bring a new, this is Renee again. Each additional watch must always bring a new variation or complication to the collection that does not yet exist. It could also be a small detail under the hood, for example, a column wheel. Okay. So for example, under that, then since this is a column wheel 7750, you could go up against, actually, you know what? don't know if they modified this to be a column wheel, but I doubt it. I'm gonna have to, when I do the review on this one, I'll have to pop it open. I just got this one. I haven't done the review yet. But again, this is a column wheel chronograph 7750. And I know for a fact that this isn't, for example. So that's an example of two value 7750s, two very completely different presentations. This is a GMT presentation. This is a calendar moon phase presentation, both 7750 based. I mean, this is the 7751 because the calendar version has a specific model, but they're both 7750 based, which are actually, if you watched my last video on the 7700 series of movements, it's originally a Venus movement all the way back in the timey days. Let's see. And 6 only timeless dial colors: black, white, gray, and silver. Well, what about blue, Renee? What about blue? Blue. And what about green? Purple. There are a lot of great watch colors out there, my friend. And that's the danger, Renee. When you start ticking boxes, you can sometimes miss stuff that's outside the lines. You know, James Duffy, my only rule is when I buy a watch above 3,000, I have to sell on any watches that become redundant with that style. That's a good plan. That's what I do, for example. And sometimes because of it, I wind up regretting things. Like I had a bunch of black-faced Flieger chronographs, and I sold my Sin 142, and I miss it. If you don't know the Sin 142, it's beautiful pillowcase. It's got an internal bezel, so it's got a knob at 11 o'clock or 10 o'clock to turn the bezel. You could buy it today. Great watch. Sin 140, 142, same family. Really great Flieger watch. And I'm like, you know, I already have a Flieger chrono. I have a couple of Flieger chronos. And so I sold the Sin, and I realized I missed it. It's a great watch. So collecting, it's always a slippery slope there. You know, you realize that the subtle differences between watches are sometimes more important than the big differences between watches. You know what I mean? Let's see. Renee, price limit 5,000 for a watch. I don't go any higher. You know, I would call it a soft ceiling if I were you, my friend, because I've got a similar ceiling, but I paid 55 for this one. I paid, let's see, what else do I have here that's in that, out of that range? Now, nothing else is in that range that I have in front of me. I did pay 55 for my Explorer 2 that I sold. I made money on the Explorer 2, obviously, but I must admit, I'm thinking of buying another Explorer 2 because I missed that watch too, even though it's just a black-faced GMT, waterproof, rugged. That's why I bought the. I actually bought this Omega to replace the Voyager 2. Voyager 2 to replace the Explorer 2 because I did miss the fact that the Explorer 2 was a rugged, waterproof GMT sports watch, and so I bought this as a rugged, waterproof GMT sports watch. But this is a completely different presentation, and so I still wind up missing the Explorer. I'm looking at one on Chrono 24. In fact, there's a dealer trying to sell an Explorer 2 that has a leather strap. He didn't have the metal bracelet, so he put a leather strap on it with a Rolex buckle, and he's asking for 67 and change, I believe. I offered him 65 for it, and he rejected. So I'm going to wait another month, and if it's still there, I'm going to make the other. I'll offer him 66 and see if he'll take it. But I don't care as much about straps, so I don't mind buying an Explorer 2 with a leather strap. I would probably keep it on a NATO anyway. But yeah, sometimes you have to sell a watch to realize that you want a watch. You know what I mean? I sold the Sin, and I wouldn't mind getting another one. I sold the Explorer 2, and I wouldn't mind getting another one. And there are a lot of watches I've sold that I don't miss. So in one sense, it's a pain in the ass to buy a watch that you sold, you know, rebuying a watch. And it's happened. There are videos from other pundits on this, you know, in this lovely hobby that lament, you know, buying a watch that they had sold previously, and sometimes rebuying a watch they had sold multiple times because they couldn't get away from it. And sometimes it happens to you. You know, a watch sticks with you, or you like the design, and even if you get rid of it, you miss it and you buy it again. Let's see. Um, I have a 7750, 7751, 53, 54, and 7770. Renee, very cool. That's a good collection. No blue, no green. Even with the rules, I bought 33 watches. Well, there are a lot of watches out there that aren't blue or green or red or yellow. Drinking Augustiner Bräu Edelstoff. The nice thing about living in Germany is that you can get Munich beer at your local bodega, kiosk, convenience store, whatever local name you choose. I'm going to a big electronics show next week. I'm going to Productronica, a big automated engineering show in Munich. First show I've been to in almost 2 years. It'll be fun. I'm going to do an episode of the show from the road. I'll probably, maybe I can find somebody with a cool watch in a bar, and then we'll do a little quickie show on my cell phone or something. We'll figure out something, make something fun while I'm on the road. Let's see. Hey, late EF World Tour. What's up? I'm a happy man right now. I really am. My writing business is going well. Working hardly work. I enjoy what I do. I'm a tech writer in my day job, and like I said, I'm going to this industrial automation show, and I'm going to bring my cameras, and I'm going to have all kinds of fun doing booth videos and talking about advanced automation and industry 4.0. There's a lot of really cool stuff happening in that space. I'm glad that I'm still a working journalist in the embedded electronics space. There's so much going on right now. It's really fun. But then again, that's why I'm a mechanical watch hobbyist, because it's not like I can read Popular Mechanics and go, I wonder what's coming up next, because the people who write that book read what I write. Let's see. James, very true. Sometimes when I see redundancy and miss the nuance, and that's what I meant about the watches. Like sometimes you have two watches that look alike and you think they're relatively the same, and then you get rid of the one, and then you realize I missed the bezel action, or I missed the fact that it was Lemania, 5100 based, and so it had center minutes in the timer, or I like the fact that the IWC Chrono has slightly darker paint on the subdial so that the indices stand out better. Little things like that make you realize how hard it is to make a nice watch. For example, in the case of IWC, on paper, a lot of their watches come across looking very plain. And IWC has made luxurious simplicity an art. And you can't really appreciate what they have until you hold it in your hands. And that's what I said last episode when I was talking about buying watches and trying them on. A primary aspect of your watch collecting strategy should be to touch the watch before you spend money on the watch, even if it's just going into a dealer and holding it in your hands and they're not going to let you put it on because they're afraid you'll sweat up the strap. You got to hold it in your hands and see it in the flesh. I'll give you a perfect example. Everyone talks about the Patek Philippe Nautilus. And I thought, okay, nice watch. And until I actually held one in my hands, and I held it in my hands and I go, okay, that's why it's worth all that goddamn money. It's not worth the inflated aftermarket prices, but it's totally worth its retail price. That's a $20,000 watch, easily, a Nautilus. Just like the Submariner is not a $20,000 watch, the Nautilus is totally a $20,000 watch. And I mean, like the face of a Nautilus, if you haven't seen how they handle the surface treatment, it's done so well, it's almost three-dimensional. You think you could stick your hand 2 inches into the face of the watch before you come up against something solid. That's why it's so critical to hold a watch in your hands and put it on your wrist and see how the light plays off of it, because photographs can't do justice. Descriptions can't do justice. Borrow your friend's watch, go to a shop and play with it. But I'd buy a watch for less than 500. I mean, I bought my G-Shock. I bought a G-Shock for the show to do a review, upcoming show. I bought a G-Shock sight unseen. I'm not worried. I would buy a watch under $500 sight unseen. Aside from a photograph, of course, I would look at the photograph. But if I'm spending more than $1,000 on a watch, unless it's a vintage piece that I know the nomenclature of, I wouldn't spend that kind of money on a watch that I haven't personally touched, because you could be so disappointed that it's not even funny. Save up for months and then to buy a watch that you're disappointed in has got to be that's a shitty situation. Let's see. I used to collect in sets. James says this. I used to collect in sets based on variations on a theme, but that automatically baked in redundancy. Redundancy. Well, that's another aspect of collecting. Some people, for example, I know people who've got 20 Seikos, 30 Seikos. There's a redundancy in there, but there's also a variety in there, because then they're gambling on, I shouldn't say gambling, they're betting on the nuance. They're basing the collection. So I've got 20 Sonys, but this one's got a different shaped hour hand, and this one's got a different, colored bezel, and this one's got a different movement in it. This one's a Seiko 5, and this one's a quartz. So I can see someone having a vertically integrated collection. The rich douchebags have vertically integrated Rolex collections. You see all these people flexing on Instagram with the collection of different colored Daytonas. Frankly, I think they're flexing and they're probably borrowed or they're a dealer. But if you've got the money to buy 5 different colored Daytonas, more powerful, more power on you. You're obviously not an average collector. Anybody who can afford more than one Daytona and doesn't buy another watch must really have a Daytona complex. But there are people who own 5 Daytonas and no other watch. Or you see that picture on Instagram and they've got like 5 Daytonas and 3 Submariners, but they're all Rolexes. There is enough nuance within the Rolex line to have a halfway decent collection and say that you have a different collection, but I wouldn't spend my money on it, frankly. Let's see. UK Carl, I'm new to collecting watches and I'm discovering new ones every day, but the new Seamaster 300 looks amazing. It is, but then again, the Seamaster line is classic. The Seamaster is one of the oldest watch models in existence. The Seamaster predates the Submariner. The Seamaster predates a lot of watches, and it had different looks. And actually, though, they brought back a lot of the older looks in some of the newer models. So you can now get a Seamaster in a comical variety of iterations. And it's a perfect only watch. And frankly, it's a better watch than the Rolex for the money. It's a perfect only watch, and it's obviously a fantastic second or third or fourth or fifth watch. It's a great one in a 3-watch collection. I mean, you could have a 2-watch collection, just Omegas. Boom. There's a 2-watch collection right there. You got your sport diver. You got your daily wear suit. And I got 2 different leather straps for this. This is the casual leather strap, but I have the black alligator Omega strap for it. And I think I'm going to buy a blue alligator because I do like the blue that comes off the hands when you hold it in the right light, and the blue text. And that's another reason why I have a blue casual strap for this, because it brings out the face. But I do believe very strongly that you should be able to swap your straps around and get the maximum out of your watch. I even have the Aquaterra blue rubber strap for this, and it looks great on it. You probably see the pictures of this on the blue Aquaterra rubber strap on my Instagram feed. But yeah, the Seamaster is a great watch. Globemasters are better, but yeah, obviously they're shooting for different targets, and this will be a great 2-watch collection. Let's see. Renee, at the beginning of my watch career, I felt like a child in a toy store. Lots of nice watches everywhere. That's why I made my rules. Otherwise, I would live in a tent with hundreds of watches now. Well, I have currently 17 watches that I count. I've got a bunch in the case that I throw in there, the older vintage pieces that I rarely wear, and then I just say they're collection. But like active wear watches, I've got about 12 that I wear in high rotation, and several that I just swap in and out. And I've got 3 watches literally at a shop right now selling. I've got my Alpine regulator, the Universal Genève chronograph, and my Omega Speed Sonic lobster. I have them all for sale right now at a shop down the street on consignment. So I would say if you don't want to build a huge collection, then uh, roll the collection over a lot. I wouldn't say flip the collection because flipping implies that you're trying to make a money or you're trying to get some kind of deal. Rolling the collection over to me means that you're selling watches in order to buy watches so you can expand your collection in some ways and explore other watches and others. So I'm always buying and selling watches. So I have an experience with the watches and I also get to show them to you all because, like I said, once I started buying watches, I started the channel and I realized I can have fun with watches and show you what I'm doing and we can all have fun with it. And then once I've had fun with a watch, I sell it and move on to the next watch. And then the best of those wind up in my permanent collection. Like, for example, I just got this Flieger. It ain't going anywhere. This is staying in the collection. I'm not letting this one go. I'm really pleased to have gotten this watch. I'm really pleased. So let's see. Renee says, at the beginning of my watch career, I felt like a child in a candy store. Lots of nice watches everywhere. That's why I made the rules. That's right. I'm sorry, I reread that already, but that's all right. It's worth repeating. You'd live in a tent with hundreds of watches. Well, at one point, a couple of years back, I had like 30, 40 watches, and I realized I was going overboard. And so that's when I got into I bought the big case with the 8 spinners and the 9 slots. So we've got 17 watches in the case, and I kind of made that my cap. I know some people do that. You know, they limit the watch collection to the case size. And in my case, I bought a case to match what I wanted as my target collection. But yeah, at least, like I said, I have overflow, but it reminds me I have too many watches when I overflow the case. But yeah, I try to sell watches so that I can buy more watches and keep at least a baseline number in. But I realize as I'm keeping watches, the permanent collection, as it grows, by definition, makes the whole collection bigger. So damned if you do, damned if you don't. It's a catch-22 in some ways. But I feel your pain, Renee. I mean, okay, admittedly, it's a first world pain. If you're worrying about collecting too many watches, obviously, it's a nice problem to have. But yeah, it's a nice problem to have. James, he's sending a note to UK Carl. The Seamaster 300 is on my radar too. I wish it had a ceramic bezel, even though it is not in line with the retro vintage aesthetic. I think the newer one, I think it is a ceramic, but I might be wrong. But they've got a couple of iterations out there that are vintage inspired, and I believe those do have ceramic bezels, but I'll have to check. But yeah, see, again, Omega is a perfect example of a company making different styles of watches so you can pick a style you like. They're not saying you have to buy what they're offering you. I recognize with a luxury brand, it's easier to get away with that. Or with a brand with a classic design, like the Cartier Tank or the Santos Dumont, which is named after Santos Dumont, the aviator. The Cartier Santos was actually the first men's wristwatch design ever made because you can't fly a plane with a pocket watch. In fact, World War I killed the pocket watch, and that's why Rolex is number one, because one of the genius aspects of Hans Wilsdorf is he called it for wristwatches before anybody else did. Let's see. What other watches? Albie's asking, what other watches are keepers in my collection? I've got a few. You know what? I'm going to go grab. I had packed for the trip. I already threw watches in a case. Let me get the watch case. I haven't even packed my clothes yet, but I packed my watch case. The reason I'm bringing it is because some of the keepers are in the case. But I can, some of the keepers are right in front of me. Okay. So as far as the keepers, let's go quick run through. Navitimer, keeper. Adeosi Flieger, keeper. Omega Globemaster, keeper. Jaeger-LeCoultre Polaris, keeper. I almost didn't keep it because I couldn't get a damn metal bracelet for it, and I was really pissed. And then I thought, okay, fine, let me just get a good alligator strap for it, and then I don't have to worry about the damn metal strap. And I really like this strap with it, so it finally put it firmly in the keeper, because I was pissed because of the strap, but this is such an awesome watch. It really is a beautiful piece. And I was going to sell this and buy the chronograph, but then I realized I own this one. The aesthetic is the same as the chrono, and I already have it. So to sell it at a loss and buy the chrono, it's worth it for the $200 to buy a good leather strap. So always opt for a strap change before you get rid of a watch you're not completely happy with, because if you do get the right strap combo, it really makes the watch. So keeper and keeper. This was my grail piece. Zenith El Primero Open Heart. So of the 17 pieces in my collection, let me take a quick look. One more. Keeper, Bulova Accutron. So out of the 17 pieces in my collection, I've got six pieces that I wouldn't sell, which isn't bad. That means that I have some flexibility in the collection there. Although it would take a lot to sell this, I'd sell it. The Black Bay Heritage, I would keep it until I really needed to. It's almost permanent party, but I'd sell it if the price was right. But it is a nice piece. I do like the Seamaster GMT, but I could see myself selling this and buying a new ceramic Seamaster, for example. I like this Longines full date moon phase, but I'd rather have a JLC moon phase triple date. Of course, at 4 times the price. I mean, this is a $3,000 watch and the JLC is a 12, but we all try to migrate our collections upward, isn't it? So yeah, these are all watches I like, but I wouldn't make them, I wouldn't say that they're permanent party, only because if someone offered me the right price, I'd sell them. The 6 I mentioned, I wouldn't sell for any price. But like, for example, this Frederic Constant World Timer is another great piece that I wouldn't replace unless I had to. So, and then there's a bunch of watches that I would sell at the drop of a hat. So I would say that everybody's probably got those, you could almost call it a triage, right? The watches you won't sell, the watches you might sell, and the watches you will sell. And I guess watch collecting is balancing all of those various needs, right? And you don't know which watches you want to keep until you've had an opportunity to enjoy them, right? If you look at it in that sense, you have to experience a watch. That's why I keep saying about holding a watch and wearing a watch and playing with a watch. Travel cases are important. You want to keep your watches in good shape when you're traveling around, and also then you can throw them into the hotel safe when you're much more easily, but always have a case when you're traveling with your watches, and keep them in your carry luggage. Don't ever put them in your check luggage. In fact, sometimes if I don't trust the hotel safe, I'll just put the watch case in my computer bag and just go the whole day with the watch case in the computer bag. I'm not going to let the computer out of my sight. James, see, James, there is a Seamaster 300 with a ceramic bezel insert. You better start saving up. Uh, Alexander, hey, I have an 1861 Speedy and oh, you have an Apollo 8 Speedy. I envy you. I really, really, really have been thinking about getting an Apollo 8 Speedy. The Apollo 8 Speedy is a really, really nice watch. I like the fact that it's black. I'm not a big fan of the yellow highlights, but I could come to live with them. I love the fact that the skeletonized face and back are textured like the moon. The newer Dark Side of the Moon, I don't think is as nice. It's an impressive piece, but I don't think it's as nice as the original Apollo 8. But it's a nice piece. You decided your next watch is going to be the 3861 Speedy, and after that, the 321 Speedy. You love manual wind chronographs. Are you nuts for only buying moon watches? I wouldn't say you're nuts, but I say you're holding yourself back. Have you thought about buying just a bunch of little vintage hand-wound chronographs? Because I paid about 300 euros for this. It's a Value 7733 based hand-wound chronograph. And it's a fun little funky watch. So like if you're really into hand-wound chronographs, have a bunch of Speedmasters. We were talking about appreciating the nuances between similar models. So the differences in the Speedmasters will give you joy because you'll be able to explain them to other people, if nothing else. But yeah, I think, if you've got that many Speedies, you can drop a couple hundred on a few old vintage chronos, and some vintage hand-wound chronos you'll have some fun with too. Trust me. And Renee agrees with me. No, Alexander, at least not more than the rest of us. Exactly. You're not crazy. We're all in this. I mean, the fact that any of us own more than one watch in a world where you don't need a watch means we're all part of a special group anyway, right? Hey, Jonathan, thank you for the compliment. Nice show. What do I think of having a couple of pocket watches in the collection? Oh, I have several. Here we go. Here's just two. I happen to have handy. This one's a Kenzel military pocket watch, built rugged, no jewels. It's all metal in here. No jewels in this watch at all. Kenzel was unfortunately, it even has a little case to put the pocket watch in to protect it against, like I said, military pocket watch. No jewels in it, very rugged, like a Timex, first generation Timex. None of the first generation Timexes had jewels in them. They were all designed to be thrown away instead of repaired, which is why nobody collects first generation Timexes aside from the collection value. And then this is actually one of my pride pieces. This is a 10-second stopwatch. Elgin was used during World War II by pilots and bombers and navigators and stuff. A good friend of mine gave this to me, and I'm going to have him on the show. In fact, Alex Lido, he's in his own space a famous man. He's a co-inventor of the HEXFET MOSFET and was one of the team of engineers that took apart the MiG-25 that defected to the United States. He's a phenomenal engineer. And he and his father were great watch collectors, and they have an interesting relationship with Universal Genève. At one point, they tried to buy the company. And so I'm going to have him on the show in a couple of weeks, and we're going to interview him about his watch collecting. So it's going to be fun. But yeah. Pocket watches are fun. They're also a great way to explore complications you might not be able to afford. Before I got my double chronograph Speedmaster, I bought a double chronograph stopwatch to make sure I had a double chronograph for my video on how chronographs work. But I wound up getting the Speedmaster in time. But I'm glad I had it. Or again, like I was saying, 10-second stopwatch costs a Shinola load from Zenith. Matter of fact, 10-second stopwatches from anybody. This thing beats it 40 times a second. I wonder if now I'm putting it up. I don't know if you can hear it, but 10-second stopwatch is a very, very high complication in a wristwatch, but you can find pocket watches with various complications in them. I mean, you can definitely find a pocket watch with a minute repeater in it cheaper than you can find a wristwatch with a minute repeater in it, or any of the other complications. So no, pocket watches are fun and cool, and I've got an episode on pocket watches in the archive. I think they're a really fun way to explore watch collecting and interesting horology and just fun pieces. I mean, worst case scenario, put it on a chain and stick it in your vest pocket well, jeans have that little pocket. That little pocket in jeans was originally made for pocket watches because working people didn't have vests and suits and stuff. So, what do I think of the new Accutron Space View, UK Carl? I like the ones with the electrostatic motors in them. I like it. I think it's a little over the top with the skeletonization, but considering what it is and considering that people probably thought that this was over the top skeletonization in its day, I think the new one does evoke the spirit of the old one in the the aggressive skeletonization, the color scheme, the fact that what you're seeing is all functional, right? I mean, yes, they've displayed it in a showy way, but those electrostatic motors and that electrostatic motor and those electrostatic generators are really there. Now, it's wound by a rotor. I mean, it uses a traditional rotor, but the fact that they presented the electrostatic generators and the electrostatic motor in that way, and you can see them move, yeah, it harkens back to the original Space View. I'm glad that they offered different case designs because if I did get one, I'd get one with the traditional lugs. But the one thing I don't like about it is if it sits too long, the capacitor in it will die, and you have to have the watch rebuilt. I don't think that's going to be a big problem. I'm thinking that's for like long-term storage, but I'd be concerned about that if I owned one. Let's see, but I do like the way it looks. I think it's sharp, and I think if you're into techie skeleton watches, you can't go wrong with that at the price point. But a little flashy for my taste at my age. The nice thing about this Accutron is it's a little smaller. The new one is I think it's like 10 inches across or something like that. It's a big, big, big watch. I know it's not 10 inches across. I'm joking, but you know what I mean. I've gone mad with the G-Shock. How do I stop? Why stop? I mean, you could buy G-Shocks with hands. You can buy a G-Shocks modded to look like Royal Oaks. You could buy G-Shocks with liquid crystal displays. You could buy G-Shocks that are radio controlled. You can buy G-Shocks that are world timers. You could buy G-Shocks that have stopwatches with hands built into them. The G-Shock is another example of a collection you can have where you could have 20 watches and none of them are the same. They're all G-Shocks. So that's another example of having a collection maybe that's vertically integrated, but nuanced. Any cheap chronographs that I like? Oh, like new ones? I think, well, you mentioned the Bulova Moon watch. I think the Bulova Lunar Pilot is a phenomenal deal, right? My philosophy is I'm a mechanical watch guy primarily, but I have nothing against quartz watches. I think a watch with hands is important. And the Bulova Lunar Pilot has a beautiful face, lovely presentation, nice hands, and it has a history. I mean, even though it is a quartz watch, its design dates back to the original lunar pilot that was worn by the commander of Apollo 15 when his Omega Speedmaster's crystal popped off. So it has heritage. It has great design. It's a high beat quartz watch, so it's incredibly accurate. Great piece. I'd buy one. I mean, I have a couple of Speedmasters right now, but I'd buy one if I didn't have a Speedmaster. I do believe that it's too redundant and looks especially considering I've also got the IWC Flieger. I got a lot of blackface chronographs, so I wouldn't necessarily get the Lunar Pilot for my collection, but I'd strongly recommend it to anybody. Or the Timex Weekender's nice. The Hamilton bicompacts, they've got a beautiful bicompact Hamilton's got out. And we're talking, I think that one's $1,500 or so, not that bad. Um, but there are a lot of good, inexpensive watches out there. And don't forget companies like Mito and Oris who make really great watches at awesome price points and are highly overlooked, even though they make really sharp pieces. So yes, there are a lot of nice pieces out there. And let's not forget the Seagull 1963, the Chinese column wheel chronograph that you can buy for a few $100. So yeah, there's a lot of good stuff out there. There's a lot of good stuff out there. Like I said, pick up a vintage chronograph. This is a 7733 from the 70s. Fun piece, few $100. So bum bum bum. James at Neil, I recommend finding a Grail G-Shock you will wear more than what you already have. Search and save, then decide to do with what you are not wearing. Well, that's another point, right? You keep looking until you find what you really, really want. And then with the ones left over, you gift them or you sell them or you hold on to them for beaters. But it's your choice. The Longines Spirit Chronograph. I think Longines is a great company. I think their new chronos are nice. I like the design and the style. I think they're totally worth it. And I don't know if the Spirit is a column wheel, but most of the Longines chronographs are column wheel, but that's something to look into. And if it's a column wheel, that makes it all the more desirable. But I think Longines is one of those companies that suffers from belonging to a corporation. They have great pieces, but they're not allowed to innovate too far out of the box because they have to stay in their lane so they don't compete with the other companies in the corporation. So I think Longines is a fantastic company. I really love this Longines moon phase complete calendar. They really take the time, trouble, and effort. They're not allowed to do as much as they could, frankly, in my humble opinion. So let's see. James is saying to Shoaib, I hope I say that right, Shoaib, if you're looking slightly upmarket, a pre-owned Longines Avigation Big Eye. Yes, the Big Eye, the Longines Big Eye is a really nice piece and direct competition to a piece like this IWC Flieger. The Longines Big Eye is beautiful, sharp, well-made, attractive. And because it's a big eye, people can spot it from across the room. It has a nice design language that comes through, that it's not just your average Flieger. A lot of Fliegers tend to look the same, and the Big Eye manages to not look the same as other Fliegers, which is a nice thing. Let's see. Do you have to have a Rolex? No, Neil, you do not have to have a Rolex. I miss my Rolex. At one point, I owned 4 Rolexes. I held up 5 fingers. Okay. At one point, I've owned 5 in my time, but I've owned at one point 4 Rolexes simultaneously. Not worth it. Those 4 Rolexes were half the value of my entire collection. And they take attention away from everything else in your collection. So Rolex is perfect for as I started this episode with, a Rolex is a perfect one watch collection. If you own one watch, Rolex is perfect. But if you have more than one watch, the Rolex tends to overshadow the other pieces in your collection. And then you wind up wearing it more than others, or you feel bad you're not wearing the watch that costs more than all the others. So yeah, I have mixed feelings on Rolex, but they lean towards walk away because it's like a complicated relationship with an interesting person, but you're not sure if it's going to work out. My girlfriend's shaking her head over on the other side of the room. I'm not meaning you. Oh, be good. I'm glad. Thank you. Keep up the good work. Well, I mean, if you think about it, we're running to the end of the hour. But I mean, if you think about it, all I'm doing is talking about watches from the heart. I'm a collector, right? So Federico just had an episode where he's like the truth about watch collectors, and I'm one of the people he talked about. I'm a collector. He said there were people who are trying to sell watches. I'm not that. You're saying there are people who are, YouTubers who are getting paid by people. I'm not that. I'm the hobbyist. So I don't have the business experience that Federico has, but it's coming from an honest place at least, and I have no agenda. I think I've owned Seikos. I don't own Seikos because I think that they don't have any soul in them, inspiring soul in the sense of character. I think they're great pieces. I think they're a little on the sterile side, but they're phenomenal. They're well made, highly finished, but they don't talk to me. And that's the thing about watch collecting. It has to talk to you or it's useless. So I'm a collector that's got a show and I talk about what I think. And I'm lucky to have some people who resonate with me about it. But it's about you. It's what you want to wear. And if I can encourage you and inspire you to wear what you want to wear, give you the strength to stand up to the douchebags and the snobs and say, no, I like this watch, and you can go take a hike just because it's not what you think I should be wearing. You should be wearing what you want to wear, not what other people think you wear, what you should be wearing. So, do you have a Rolex? Keep up the good work. Okay. Heinhardt. Heinhardt watches are nice watches. Heinhardt has a legacy, very well made chronos. They have their design cue is they've got a red button for the chrono. But Heinhardt, they're a good company. I don't see a lot of design innovation out of them. I see them as a company that makes good quality German chronos and or Swiss chronos, European chronos. They make good quality chronos, highly finished, well made. And they have a character, right? The character is they've got a very singular style, a little on the Bauhaus direction, but they're beautifully made pieces and they're made very well to a high level of finish. And again, that's another brand you can't go wrong with. I mean, frankly, I wish they had more daily wear styles, loomed hands. They tend to go more with the stiffer suit designs, but that's their style. That's their design language, and that's part of what makes them different. But yeah, good watches. I wouldn't own one myself necessarily. If I got one as a gift, I'd totally love it. But like I said, I prefer a daily wear with some loom on it, and the Heinhardts aren't directly in that space. Let's see. Nick, looking forward to seeing you next week in Munich myself, my friend. You need some nice pieces. Neil, cheers, great show. Thank you, Neil. And looking to the Citizen, solar powered and clean design. Well, it's my favorite IWC pilot homage. The Citizen's a pilot homage. That's true, and it's a solar. So if you're going to go quartz, you might as well go solar or kinetic. I mean, solar is better because there are no moving parts, but definitely get a self-recharging quartz if you're going to go through the trouble to get a quartz, because the tech is there. You can get solar, kinetic, eco drive. You might as well, because if it's a zombie apocalypse, you don't want to be raiding drugstores for button batteries, Black Bay on the worn leather or the steel bracelet. I currently have my Black Bay on the steel. And frankly, that's because the bracelet is really nice. And Tudor was created to provide Rolex case and bracelet and crown fit and finish to the marketplace at a lower price point. And they succeeded. But I've worn this on a NATO. I could see this on, I don't have a leather for it, but I could see this on a leather. This is another watch that should be on different straps. And so I wouldn't say it's an either or. I would say wear the leather when you're in the mood for leather, wear the steel when you're in the mood for steel, and try a NATO. You might be surprised. I like NATO straps just for the change up and the color choice they offer you. So I would try all of them. But can I just simply say yes instead of either? Let's see. Heinhardt's designs are too industrial for me. Well, that's what I'm saying, James. They're very, very sterile, but that's part of their, if you like that, that's part of their cachet. But I deeply appreciate their heritage and timing in instruments for science and aviation. Exactly, James. They make good watches. They make really good watches. You pick them up, Like I saying, that's the kind of thing that when you touch that watch, you know someone cared when they made that watch. So let's see. Mark, thank you. I appreciate it, Mark. Like I said, I'm just a hobbyist and I'm a journalist in my day job. So I thought, let me start a channel for my hobby. And I'm just really pleased that it has resonated. And I love all of you. If I wouldn't be able to sit here if it weren't for all of you out there supporting me. So tell your friends and ask them to subscribe too, please. Works fine on a NATO. I agree. NATO straps are fantastic. I think I'm going to do a part 2 of my fun with NATO straps. I might even do a live show and just play with straps and hold them up and stuff. But we're at the top of the hour, so unless someone has something specific, let's end the show and pick this conversation up next week. Have a great time. I appreciate it all. I really do. You have no idea how much I love this. Boom.